Now let's go and explain the views and how we can deal with the views. You know now what is this folder? Course, home, room, and student and teacher. These folders are related to the controllers here. But we have another folder called shared, and inside this shared we have something like layout, login partial, and validation scripts partial, and error.cs HTML. What is the layout page? Let's open this. It is just HTML page. Inside this we can write HTML content. This HTML content will be rendered to the user. Now, what is the use of layout and why it is in a separate folder called shared? Shared means these pages or views are shared with the other controllers. For example, the course views here represents the views for the course controller here, but the shared folder will be shared between all controllers. The layout is actually the master page. What is the master page? Let's now explain what do we mean by the master page in order to understand the concept of the layout view. Now let's run the application again. As I said before, this is the index page in the home controller. So this content is coming from the index page in the home controller. But if we switch to another view like privacy, see the content here changed, but this content still the same and this content also still the same. And also if I changed the home controller to student controller, again the content here changed, but still this is the same and this is the same. This content here, which is shared between all pages or all views, called the layout or the master page. The master page concept was introduced in the Asb X, and in the MVC it's called layout page. So the layout page contains the HTML which will be shared between all projects. So rather than writing the HTML code inside all pages, I will write it only in one place, and this will be shared with the other views. So this is the concept of the layout. This is the way of writing the HTML, and this is the head and this is the body. Inside the body, this is the header. If I remove this header, see now the browser. Okay, let's restart it. So see now the header gone, but still this is exists. That's because I removed the header from here, the header. So I can write my HTML code here, and this code will be shared between all pages. And also this code can be shared. I can write anywhere here in this page HTML in order to be shared with the other pages. The most important thing here in the layout, the @render body. This means that here my view will be rendered inside the layout. Let's go back to the browser and refresh it. Okay, I will close and I will run it again. So now this content is inside the index page in the home controller. Let's go to the index page in the home controller. We can go to the home folder and index. This is the content, welcome and some content. We will remove this and we will say home index. And we need to restart it again. So this is home index. So this is the area where the view will be rendered, or the view content will be rendered. And this is the area for the shared content, and this is also shared content. And render body here means that in the layout, render body means that my view, which is index view or create view, will be rendered in this place. So if I want to change this place, just take this and, for example, put it here and then restart, and let's see now the difference. See, the content of the index page comes here and the shared here and here. So this is the use of the render body to control where your view will be rendered. So this is the concept of the layout. Now let's understand how we can deal with these views. First of all, we need to change the layout content. Here we have the project name, and we have the home, and we have the privacy. We need to add links here in order to navigate to the student, teacher, and courses, rooms, and courses registration. So we need to add more links here and to navigate to these pages. So how we can do that? Now we have the home and we have the privacy and we have the project name. We don't want this project name for now, and I will remove this project name, and I will keep this as it is, but we will add more links like copy, copy, copy. Now how I can add links in MVC? In this way, using the tags in the HTML, like the A, which is to add a link, and then I can say that the area is nothing, and later we will see how to deal with the areas, and the ASB controller. So for this link we need to specify the controller, for example student, and we need to specify the action method, let's say index, and let's say the link name students. And same here, we need to go to teachers, teacher, and let's say teachers, and will be index. And same for this one, let's say rooms, and the controller room, and one more also for the courses, one more for the registration. For the courses, index and course controller, and for the registration we will say that home controller, and the method is register. That's it. So now let's restart it. Now we have this home, privacy, students, teacher, rooms, courses, registration. If we click on one of these students, we should go to the student controller and the index method. And same for the teachers and rooms. There is an error here for the rooms. Let's go and see what is the error in the rooms controller. Go to rooms, room controller, and we have said here room, yeah. So room and index, there is a room, there is index. What's the problem? Type of project.I room repository while attempting to activate school.room controller. Okay, I room repository. Yes, exactly. What we forget to do is to go to the startup file and to add the services also for the dependency injection. For both I will stop here for I room repository and room repository, and also for the another one, which is the I course repository and course repository. And now run the project. Should works fine. Now go to rooms. So this is the rooms index, and courses same, and registration there is an error. Let's go to the home controller to see what's wrong for the registration. So for not, oh sorry, okay, so we did a mistake here in the layout. For the registration, it's not home, it is a student controller. So that's it. And now restart it again. So now let's try this one again. There is something wrong. Okay, SQL insert statement conflicted with the foreign key constraint student course ID. The conflict occurred in the database. Okay, because the project, the application is trying to insert the data to the database, while we still don't want to insert data. So what's wrong? We will go to the student controller to see. Now in the registration, there should be a course ID and student ID. So now what we need to do? We need first to say that this HTTP post, and like what we did in the create, we have two action methods, one to render the view and one to do the action. So we need to create another action method like this one, register, but without receiving anything, and we need to say this will return view. And we have, I think, we have the view for the register. So that's it. Now let's run the project. Now let's go to the registration. Now it's working fine. So this is the way of how we can navigate between the controllers and the action methods. Now let's understand what is ASB area. As I said before, we have included the Microsoft identity to our project. So, and by doing this, a new folder has been created here called areas, and areas contain different areas. For now, we have just one area called identity. Area means like a separate project, but inside the project. How this works? Now, let's say I have to isolate the control panel from the end user application, but I need to create the whole solution or the whole application using only one project. So how I can do such isolation? By simply creating a new areas. For example, I will have here another area called control panel, and the route for these areas will be different, and we will see how this will be different by an examples also. So now let's say I have in the identity, I have, for example, the login page. I will add a new link here. I will say here login, and I need to navigate to another area which is the identity area. So I have to specify here, let's stop and take this copy. I have to say the ASB area is identity, And then I have to say that I don't have controllers in my areas because Microsoft Identity works based on badges, not controllers. So I have to say for this kind of badges, I have to say ASB page will be equal to login or account slash login, because we are in the account, we are pages, so that's why we said ASB page, then account, and then inside the account called login. Let's remove this. And there is no action method here because it is a page. If we have a controllers in the areas, so I have to say the same. I have to mention the area and the controller name and the action method. But in this case, for Microsoft Identity, we have pages. That's why here inside the identity, we have folder called pages, and inside this folder, we have all pages. So our page is login, which is inside the account. So we said account slash login. This is how we can navigate into another area. Now we understand the concept of the layout and the concept of the views. Now let's start creating the views contents. We will start with the student, and first one is the index. So in the index page, we need to create the content for the index. As we said, I will close this, I will close this, and this, and this, and I will keep the student controller. In the index here, we said that we need to return a student list to the view. So this means that we need to render list of students inside this view. I will remove this content. I will keep it empty for now. Now I need to say that the index view should receive a data of type list of student. So how I can do that? I need to say that this page should accept or should receive a list of students. How I can say that? I will say at, then model, then I will say that this model will be list of students. So by this way, I said that this view should receive a list of students. And now what we need to do with the list of students? We need to render the students in the browser. So what we will do? Since we are dealing with objects and we are dealing here with a list of objects, so we need to use a for loop. And in this case, we prefer to use the for each. How we can create for each loop inside the view? Simply, I will say at, then for each, then I will mention my item, or here in this case it is student, so I will say var student in model. By this way, I can say I need to access all students one by one from this model. Then I will open and close the curly brackets. Now, what I need to do with the students? We need to render the information in a table. So we need a design for a table. So simply I can paste my design here. But in this case, if I have 10 students, this means that 10 tables will be created and rendered on the browser. To avoid that, we just need to render 10 students. So I can start the for each here and end it here, because only I need to repeat the TRs, one TR per student, and inside the TR I need to render like at, I will say at student, my variable here, dot, then I can say that name, and also the second is age, I can say student dot age, and the last one I can say the status at student dot status, for example, or we can change it to the address. Let's say address, and here address. So by this way, one table will be rendered on the browser and several rows with the student information will be rendered inside this table. Now we don't have students on the database. We need to create a new students. So let's go now to the view create, and let's here add the content in order to create new student. So now we need to create the HTML design or HTML content for the create page. I simply will paste the design, and you can write your own design here. We need the name, we need the age, we need the address, and we need the status for the student, and we need to submit this form. I will explain one thing, that in order to pass your object, you need to create a form first of all. Go back to the student controller and see this create, it is HTTP post, and we should pass a student object to this method in order to be inserted in the database. And I have here a breakpoint in order to debug the code and how it works. Now in my design, I just simply said that I need to create here a form, HTML form, and the action for this form is create. Why is it create? Because the name of this action is also create, and the type, method type, is post, because it's also here HTTP post. If it's get, so I can say here simply get, but for now it is post, so I will choose post. And inside my form, I have to specify the fields which I am going to send to my object. In my student objects, I have the name, the student name, it's called the student name. For the inputs, I have to specify the name of the input exactly as it is in the model. Go now to the model student. See, we have the student ID, we have the student name, we have the student status and age. Let's take this copy and let's search for this here. It should be here. The student or the input name should be exactly as the property name in the model. So we have the student name, we have the student age and the address, and also we have the status. Status is checkbox, and its value, let's say for example by default it is false, and if it's checked will be true, otherwise it will be false. And we have button, input button of type submit, in order to submit the form. So now let's run the application and to see how this works. We need to go to the students controller and see this is the index page and the design here, because there are no students in the database, so the table is empty. We need to go to the create by changing the view name or the action method name, and we can have a link here for the create page. Just simply here now click enter. This is the create page, and we can say that we need to insert John and 16 and a man, and let's say that yes, he's active, and click on submit. Yes, simply we can see here by pointing here to see the data if it's correct. Yeah, a man 16, John, and is active equal true. So now this object should be inserted. Why the student ID is 0? Because the student ID value is identity, and it will be automatically generated in the SQL server. Now in order to see how this will work, we can point to here, step over, or by clicking on F10. This is the one, and now we are calling the method which is responsible to insert the student. So the process has been successfully done, and return the list of students. Should be 1. Yes, John 16. Now return this to the index view and continue. See, now we moved to the index page, and the data now we have one student called John, his age is 16 and his address is Amman. So this is how we can create a resource in the database, and this is how also we can retrieve data from the database and render it in the browser.